So this week we'll be discussing our favorite topic, which is polygamy, when it comes to the Jewish nation specifically. Now, interestingly enough, when it comes to polygamy, it says, where do we see the introduction of polygamy? Who's the first one that comes into mind when we think about polygamy?
Tuval, Cain's father, Lamech.
Oh, Lamech had some, that's right. Who else?
Abraham.
Abraham had 2 wives. Who else?
The most noticeable is Yaakov.
Yaakov had 4 wives. Very good. Kings will take out of the pictures because kings have different rules. But what about other people? Throughout Yitzchak only had 1 wife.
One wife.
Yeah. What about other people throughout Jewish history that you know had many wives?
Job.
Job had many wives.
I think so.
Yeah.
Or no, he had multiple daughters.
So the one more famous one was Elkanah, who had Hannah and Pnina.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, who had Hannah and Pnina, and Hannah had Shmuel. Yeah, the prophet Shmuel and on. But besides that, we don't find that many throughout Jewish history, not many men we saw married multiple wives. Kings did, but regular men we don't find. Even for Rabbi Akiva, how many wives did he have?
I believe one.
Yeah, everybody was married to. It doesn't look like polygamy was very much entrenched within the Jewish nation. But let's see what went around. So let's look at source number 1, this week's Parsha. It says like this: כי תהיינה לאיש שתי נשים, האחת אהובה והאחת צנועה. If there's going to be to a man 2 wives, one which he loves and the one other which he doesn't like, וילדו לו בנים, and they gave birth to sons, האהובה והשנואה, both of them gave to him sons, the one he loves and the one he doesn't, והיה הבן הבכור לשנייה. It says if his firstborn comes from the one he doesn't love, he still has to give him double the portions. Why? Because he is the firstborn. That's what in this week's portion, that's what it says. The Talmud tells us, and over here we have, so that's the first source we have from the Torah, that it looks like the Torah permits 2 wives, right? Because it says, if a man is going to have 2 wives, so over here it's obvious that the Torah permits 2 wives. The Gemara says like this, Amar Rabbi Ami. This is in the time of the Gemara. So it says, Rabbi Ami said, Kol hanose isha lishto. It says, if somebody decides to marry a second wife, he takes a wife upon his wife, which means a second wife, Yotzi, says, you know what you should do? Choose. No such thing. I don't allow you to get married to 2 wives. He says, Yotzi, v'iten ktuba. You should divorce one. You can decide. And you should pay her the ktuba. Ktuba is a large amount of money that a person signs when he marries a woman so that he's going to have it. So he's supposed to take it away. Shalom Aleichem. Oh, we have a lot of guests today. There's more space over there. And Arya, you going to share?
Huh?
You'll share with him?
No. Go ahead.
Eli, the topic of this shiur has to do with polygamy, marrying 2 wives. So we had the first one, we had the first source already that says that the Torah permits 2 wives, because this is a source from the source number 1 that we discussed. Source number 2, we're going to read it again, you just came in. So it says like this, even though it looks like the Torah gave us the permission to marry 2 wives, Moshe, Amar Rabbi Ami says, Kol hanose isha lishto. It says anybody who marries a woman, it takes her 1 more on his wife. He decides one is not enough trouble, he wants a little bit more, so he takes another one. So Rabbi Ami says, what should he do? Yotzi v'iten ktuba. it looks like he doesn't allow it. It says choose one, divorce one, and give the ketubah, the amount of money you need, to the other one. It says, I don't like this marriage with two wives things. This is already in the time of the Gemara that Rabbi Ami says it. Rava disagrees. What does Rava say? Nose Adam kama nashim al ishto. It says you're allowed to marry as many women as you want. It looks like many. It doesn't say specifically how many, but he has a rule. What's the rule? Vehu sheyesh lo kedei lefanasan. He has to make sure he has enough money to support each household. He cannot make them work for him. No such thing. You want to marry 5 women? You need to make, if a woman today in this society needs $70,000, $80,000 to support a family today, you need to have 100, you want 4 wives? The sage Rava says you cannot marry 4 wives unless you're making $400,000 a year. If you're making 300, you can afford 3 wives. Once you make 400, then you can take another one. There's no such thing. I'll make do. I'll give a little bit less. No.
That time also, as much money you have, you can have
Yeah, that's the idea. V'kaimalan, in the Gemara discusses the distinction between them. It says v'kaimalan kerava. In the end, the halacha is like Rava, that a person may marry many wives. Okay. All of a sudden, around 1100 years ago, a little bit less than 1100 years ago, Rabbeinu Gershom, there was a rabbi called Rabbeinu Gershom, Hechrim al anose al ishto. He decided, guys, we're not allowed to marry anymore 2 wives, no more. ולא פשטה תקנתו בכל הארצות. And we see that his takana was not established in all the countries. What happened 1,000 years ago? All the Ashkenazic community adopted it. Almost none of the Sephardi community at the time didn't adopt. Later on, in the last 400, 500 years, more and more adopted and adopted. But in the beginning, it was only Ashkenaz. The Sephardim did not adopt it. The Sephardim were allowed to make it. And even today, if you go to Israel, there's still some Yemenites that came from Yemen who are still, even today, are married to 2 wives. So the Yemenites only accepted it, pretty much, they didn't really accept it. They were forced into it because once they moved into Israel, they had to go into Israeli law, and the rabbis in Israel did not allow it. So that's it. But theoretically, if you were born in Yemen today, and you were not out of Yemen, you will still be allowed to marry 2 wives. Theoretically, it's not practical because you can't. Okay. ומכל מקום, but nevertheless we say, בכל המדינות אלו התקנה והמנהג במקומו עומד, ואין נושאים בית נשים. We see that in all the Ashkenazi country, we have a decree not to marry 2 wives, and the people took it. It's mamash took it. It took, and it is strong. Let's continue. We are on page 4. It says, "Ve'achere masher sam Rabbeinu Gershom." Now, how does he have a power? How does the rabbi has a power to all of a sudden come with new rules? Excuse me, it's none of your business. The Torah allows me. The rabbis allows me. All of a sudden, a rabbi comes today and tells you, don't do this, don't do that. I don't want to listen to you. What's his power? He cannot, what is he going to tell me? So it says, what's the power that he gave to do it? It says, you're right. The Torah allows you, the rabbis allow you, but I'm going to tell the community to ostracize you. I'm going to tell you, you want to marry 2 wives? Nobody does business with you. You won't get an aliyah in shul. We're going to be mean to you. It says, we cannot tell you according to the Torah you're not allowed to do it, but we can penalize you if you do it. That's what it's called cherem. Cherem means ostracize. I cannot give you lashes. It's true.
Where does he have the power to do it? If the Torah permits you and he doesn't.
He doesn't have.
Where does he have the?
He doesn't.
Overrule the.
He doesn't. He says to the community, I think it's a good idea. If you guys agree with me, That's what we're going to do. If the Sephardi community, for example, the Sephardi community did not agree with him, and the Sephardi community did not accept the cherem.
Is tomorrow going to come a rabbi and say we can drive on Shabbos, for example?
No. This is against the Torah to drive on Shabbos. This is not against the Torah.
It's not against the Torah, but
The-
it's permitted. So
I'll give you an example. If tomorrow a rabbi comes, you're not allowed to eat chicken. Chicken is not kosher. I cannot give you lashes. I cannot do anything to you. But you can. But we in the community can tell you, excuse me, you want to eat chicken? Go to the other community. We don't want you over here.
Well, chicken was not in the Torah anyway.
No, not chicken and milk. Just chicken.
No, but at what point in time the rule that chicken is...
Chicken is kosher. What do you mean?
No, with milk.
I'm not talking about the guy says just chicken is not kosher.
Okay,
He has just chicken without milk is not kosher. He has the power. Okay. It has a little bit of alcohol. 4%. Not much.
This alcohol?
A little bit, 4%. Okay. שלא יישא איש שתי נשים. So it says, the Rabbeinu Gershon now has a problem. It says, what do you mean? I cannot go against the Torah. There are going to be situations where a person might need to marry two wives. For example, I'll give you an example. His first wife became crazy. She's a mental institution. Cannot talk to her. She doesn't know who she is.
Give her a get and take
He can, or he say, give her a get. He can't give a get to a crazy person. She needs to understand what's happening. Very good.
going on.
Yeah. So in the old time, it's not a problem. He takes care of her, whatever he needs to take care of her, and he marries another wife. Now Rabbeinu Gershon says you're not allowed to. So what to do? So let's see. שלא יישא איש שתי נשים, אין היתר אלא ב100 אנשים. He says, I'm only going to give you permission. If you want to marry a second wife, you need to go and get the signatures of 100 rabbis. And as you know, 100 rabbis are not going to agree. If you try to make 100 Jews is easy compared to 100 rabbis. So it says if you want, you need the agreement of 100 rabbis, and then we let you take a second wife. That's what he said. Now, התיר אלה ב100 אנשים. מגיעים מלכיות, it says, where do you need this 100 rabbis? You cannot take it from just one district. You need to spread them between 3 districts. And he says which are the districts. Yeah. Or Nioa, Nombradida, and Tzarfat. Yeah, it doesn't matter. 3 places where it was the Jewish centers. Let's go at the time. גם לא יתירו אותו עד שיראו אותם להתיר. And it says that you cannot just say, I want to get married to another wife. I don't like this one. That's not a good enough reason. You need to give a good reason. Another one, a good reason is a good reason. Okay. So let's continue. ומסתמה מה שנמצא בדברי האחרונים, and we find that all the later sages שיסכימו בהיתר חרם זה מהרבנים, they all agreed that you need 100 rabbis if you want to marry a second wife. כך קיבלו הם מפי בית דין של רבנו גרשום מאור הגולה. This is what they received from Rabbeinu Gershon, who is considered to be the luminary of the exile. It is called Rabbeinu Gershon Me'or HaGolah, the one who lights the entire exile. וכשיגיע איזה עניין בין איש לאשתו, and when there's going to come circumstances between man and wife, שאין ראוי להחזיק בחרם זה, that you cannot, it's not possible for the poor guy, he's married to somebody and she's completely, whatever the circumstances is, it's necessary for him to marry another woman, for whatever reason, יהיה מה שיהיה, whatever the reason is, יתירו את החרם בהסכמת מהרבנים. The only way he can get married to a second wife, even if he has terrible situation, I don't care what, he needs the signature of 100 rabbis. Why? כדי שלא יהיה דבר קל בעיני הדורות הבאים לישא אישה לאשתו. Again, they're afraid. What are they afraid of? They're afraid of not taking 2 wives. We see, by the way, from the beginning it started. Rav Ashi already in the time of the Gemara says, don't take a second wife. You take a second wife, divorce one. You're not allowed to take 2 wives. Even in the time of the Gemara, there's such an opinion. We go like Rava, but still there's an opinion that you're not allowed to take a second wife. וכך נהגו רבותינו בזמננו להתיר לו לישא אישה אחרת על אשתו שנשתתת. So for example, in our time, by the way, there's a permission of a woman who went crazy, yeah, and she doesn't know what's happening with her, and he doesn't have kids, or he wants to get remarried, he's stuck with his wife, he can't divorce her because she's crazy, so what does he do? So it says, so you can go and get 100 signatures. Between you and me, good luck. I think in Israel, how many cases do you know that the rabbis gave a case that it happened? I heard of a case that happened in the 60s or in the 50s, I think. It's the only case I know, and since then, all these rabbis that actually signed the signature were almost, nobody liked them. The rabbis don't like the idea. He says, yeah, you're allowed to, you're not getting my signature. Go get somebody else's signature, and like this, the guy runs around, and he doesn't get. Even in Israel today, do you know of anybody in the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years who was able? No, the rabbis don't give it. It looks like there's something, they don't like the idea of a person marrying two wives. It doesn't matter what the signature. I know a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people know the concept of aguna. And aguna is a woman who her husband doesn't want to give her a divorce. He doesn't want to divorce her, and she's stuck. She cannot get remarried. And this is, in the old time, it was a real problem because the guy would, he was 18 years old, he was married to some woman, he decided, I don't know, I don't like her nose or whatever it is, he would move to another country. And she is stuck with the kids, she can never get remarried, nobody knows, it's a whole problem. A lot of people don't know there's the opposite problem. You need the permission of the woman. It says, get kritut venatan beyada. You should give the get in her hand. In other words, she needs to accept it. If she doesn't accept the get, you cannot divorce her. I have a friend, I had a still good friend of mine, who it happened to his wife decided she's doesn't like religion anymore. She wanted to leave the religion. So she took the daughter, she went away with her, whatever, and he's stuck. So he told her, okay, whatever you want, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. I just want to get remarried. So she took him like this for almost 10 years. Money. And he had no choice. Whatever she asked from him, he had to pay. Because if she doesn't accept the get willingly, it is not considered to be a get. And he's stuck. There's nothing he can do. Unless she takes it willingly, it's not a divorce. בהסכמת 100 רבנים ונעשה מעשה כמה פעמים. Okay. Let's look at page 5 to see exactly what's going on over here, to find out who's against who. So it says like this. This week's portion, כי ייקח איש אישה ובעלה, a man took a wife and they became married, והיה אם לא תמצא חן בעיניו, כי מצא בה ערוות דבר, she didn't find favor in his eye, she went astray, וכתב לה ספר כריתות, he should write to her a book of cutting, ונתן בידה ושילחה מביתו, he should give it to her hand and he should send it from his house, ויצאה מביתו והלכה והייתה לאיש אחר. And she went from his house and she will go to become another man. And then Maimonides says, guys, I don't understand what you're talking about. האישה מתגרשת ברצונה ושלא ברצונה. It says, who says you need a woman's permission? It's nothing to do with the woman, it's to do with the man. What woman's permission? Yeah? You can divorce a woman whether she likes it, whether she doesn't like it. That's what Maimonides says. Exactly the opposite of what I just said. Let's continue. ומניין שדברים אלו מן התורה. It says, how do we know that these words are from the Torah? שנאמר, because it says, והיה אם לא תמצא חן בעיניו וכתב לה ספר כריתות ונתן בידה ושילחה מביתו. It says if she won't find favor in his eyes, he should write to her a document, give in her hand and send it from his house. אם לא תמצא חן בעיניו, if she will not find favor in his eyes, מלמדת שאינה מגורשת אלא לרצונו. From here we teach us that she's the only way she can be divorced is only if he wants it. Otherwise you can't force him. If it's against his will, it's not a good get. שיאמר רוצה אני, he needs to say I want. ואם לאו, אינה מגורשת. And if not, she's not divorced. אבל האישה מתגרשת אפילו שלא ברצונה. But the woman, you can divorce her even if she doesn't want. דבדידת עלה רחמנה ולא בדידה. Because it's up to him and it's not up to her. And this is what is from the book called קריית ספר. So it says, יכול לגרשה בלא דעתה. It says he can divorce her without her agreement. So now comes Rabbeinu Gershom. The same Rabbeinu Gershom that says you're not allowed to marry 2 wives, he came and says, forget about it. There's no more thing. I take it away. וכל זה מדינה. It says all this is from Dina. It's from the ruling. אבל רבנו גרשום החרים שלא לגרש אישה שלא מדעתה. Rabbeinu Gershon come and says, no such thing. She doesn't want to get divorced, you can't divorce her. That's it. There's no, I don't care. Yeah, he gave them both sides. First of all, he said you're not allowed to marry 2 wives. And second of all, he says, you cannot do, it's not up to you, it's up to her.
Both.
Yeah. She, in other words, the last word is hers. If she says, I don't want to get divorced, you can go. That's it.
But if she comes to the man and say, I want divorce, and the man says, I don't want.
Same thing. But that was always like this. That was the Chidush. Yeah. Rabbeinu, and now you can understand also how come in the Western, in the Sephardi countries, it wasn't accepted. Now, let's talk simple reason. Yeah, let's talk simple reason. The simple reason that one wife was only accepted in the Ashkenaz countries is obvious. Because Ashkenaz countries were amongst the Christians. The Christians only married 1 wife. For them, they were not allowed to marry 2 wives. And since we had enough trouble with them, first of all, the Jews also married 1 wife. And it was illegal to marry 2 wives in the Christian communities. And once you see the Jews marrying 2 wives, they're going to say, Jews are dirty and they're marrying 2 wives and they're barbarians. So it's understood why the Jews in the European countries, so-called, the simple explanation why they have this decree. The Arab countries, the Arab used to marry many wives, so it wasn't a problem. That's the simple explanation. But we're going to see it's much deeper than that soon. Okay? Let's continue. We are in source number 8. Another disagreement that we're going to see that happened between Sfaradim and Ashkenazim is this disagreement over here right now. And it has to do with the same concept. So let's see the disagreement. Mitzvat aseh min Torah, it's a positive commandment from the Torah, שיייבם אדם אשת אחיו מאביו, בין הנישואים, בין האירוסים, אימת בלא זרע. So the case is there's a brother who was married, let's say the oldest brother was married, and he went to war and he died in the war. He doesn't have any sons. So it says it's a commandment on one of the other brothers to marry his wife. The commandment is to marry her. I think in English it's called levirate marriage. Levirate marriage it's called.
Ibum.
Yeah, ibum. Very good. Ibum in English, in Hebrew. שנאמר, ובן אין לו, if he doesn't have a seed, he doesn't have a son, יבמה יבוא עליה, one of the brothers has to come upon her. לא רצה לייבם, what happens if he doesn't want to marry her? He says, I don't like her. Oh, why are you making me? או שלא רצתה היא, or she says, I don't like him, what are you going to force me? His brother was a mensch. Yeah, of course. I don't know who the guy is. I was willing the other guy. I was not willing. That's right. I don't need this brother. I can go to another brother. That's right. הרי זה חולץ לה. So it needs to go through a process called חליצה. ואחר כך תהיה מותרת להתנסה לחליצה כדיבורס. So-called divorce, and then she is married to marry anybody else. And this is the Rambam. The Rambam says, remember the Rambam Sephardi, the The Rambam says, mitzvat yibum kodemet lemitzvat chalitza. It says, what's preferable? What's better?
The marriage.
Oh, so the Rambam says marriage is better. Let the brother marry her. It's preferable for her. If both of them agree, it's preferable to get married. Try. In other words, the Rambam says to the rabbis, try to make it happen. If it doesn't work, okay. It doesn't work. But preferably, get the marriage done. This is according to the Rambam. But let's look at the code of Jewish law. When we come to Shulchan Aruch. ויש אומרים שמצוות חליצה קודמת. Specifically in the Ashkenaz community, Yibum is never done. Also today, do you know anybody who has done Yibum? And in Israel it happens a lot.
I saw one time a movie that she didn't want, and she speak on it.
In a movie.
No,
but
in a video.
practically.
In a video.
Yeah. So this is
But
Chalitza.
she didn't want.
This is
Yeah,
Chalitza.
Chalitza.
Even if
You
she
wouldn't
wanted,
know.
by the way, even if she wanted, the rabbis wouldn't let her. That's
Wouldn't
it.
let her.
Wouldn't let her. That's the whole idea over here. Even if she wants and he wants, the rabbis today don't let. That's why you don't find cases like this. And by the way, in Israel, it's something that should happen. It's something that should... No, זה לא גילוי עריות.
כאילו היום.
No, זה לא פרובלם של גילוי עריות. That's not the problem. No, it's not...
זה כמו מצוות ציצית, פישטן וזה ביחד. יש פה בעיה.
Yeah, it's not a problem. Why? It's ach.
Because Torah, if the man is alive, can you see ערוות אשת אחיך?
If he's alive.
If he's alive, you can do. So what happened when he died?
ערוות...
No, Ari
Yeah,
Sharon,
one second.
two sisters.
Yeah. ערוות אשת אחיך is only for women. You're not allowed to see the ערוות of
You
אשת.
want to marry her now? You don't see?
He's dead.
He's dead, right? So because he died suddenly.
Yeah.
So יש פה...
Yeah, according to the Torah.
יש פה איסור מהתורה, אבל בגלל שהוא מת אז יש היתר. יש פה ניגוד כזה. יש פה מצווה. זה לא מצווה.
Okay, but I understand what you're saying.
כמו פשטן
But let's continue.
ולינן. You can do together. But in ציצית you can, right? נכון?
In what?
עם ציצית.
You can do what?
פשטן וזה together.
Pishtan and?
פשטן and linen.
That's right. You're allowed to.
Right,
Well,
it's-
they don't make you make such a garment because at night there's no mitzvah.
So it's the same here something. with
Maybe
that boom,
I don't know the rules for
you
it.
have-
It's
okay,
possible.
doesn't matter.
It's possible. So let's continue over here. אם שניהם רוצים בייבום, the Rama says even if both want the ייבום, they want to get married, אין מניחים אותם לייבם, we don't let them. אלא אם ניכר וידוע שמכוונים לשם מצווה. Only that we know for sure that they're doing it for the right reasons. And since today nobody is doing it for the right reasons, we don't let them. That's what the Rama says. Okay. Let's continue on page 8. בנוגע לקדימה דייבום או חליצה להלכה למעשה. It says, let's talk about practically what happens today. הרי כשמעניינים בפסקי דין ושאלות ותשובות של גדולי ישראל, when you're going to look at all the books of these days, כמצוין בפתחי תשובה, על אתר, בסביב של אחרי זה, in all the Paskin books that belong to our days, בעניין זה רואים שבדרך כלל פוסקים חכמי ספרד שמצוות ייבום קודמת. The majority of the Sephardic rabbis says, get married, that's preferable. וחכמי אשכנז, חליצה. חכמי אשכנז, don't let them get married. That's the way, practically. ועל דרך זה מצינו עניין נוסף דוגמתו שבהם חלוקים הספרדים האשכנזים. Again we see, there's a מחלוקת. The Ashkenazim are very strict on this, and the Sfaradim are very strict on that. אם מותר לישא יותר מאישה אחת. It's the same, it's on the same area if you're allowed to marry one woman or not. בנוגע לאשכנזים ישנו חרם דרבנו גרשום שלא לישא בית נשים. When it comes to the Ashkenazim, רבנו גרשום, you're not allowed to marry two wives. חרם לכתחילה עד סוף 1050 ולאחרי זה בתור המשך. By the way, this חרם, רבנו גרשום made this חרם only for 1,000 years. The 1,000 years are already over. But since it was already set in the Jewish, established within the Jewish nation, that's it, it's done. אלא אם כן על פי היתר של 100 רבנים. The only way to get out of this, if you have a good reason, and you have to have 100 rabbis come and sign on it. And like I told you, even if you have a good reason, it's very difficult for them to find these 100 rabbis. ובנוגע לספרדים, when it comes to the ספרדים, מלכתחילה לא נתקרא בחרם אצלם. In the beginning, we know that none of them accepted. וכפי שרואים עד לדורנו זה, and like we see until this generation, שבארצות הספרדים נושאים יותר מאישה אחת, ובארצות האשכנזים הרי בכל חוגי שומרי תורה ומצוות לא נמצאים מי שיישא יותר מאישה אחת. Yeah, by the way, today, even the Sfaradim don't accept it, but nevertheless, it is allowed. You cannot tell somebody you're in a cherem or you're something else. It's not looked at it as the Ashkenazim look at it, okay? ובביאור כללות החילוק בין הספרדים לאשכנזים יש לומר. So he says, why? The Rebbe asks, what happened? What happened over here that all of a sudden in Arzot Ashkenaz, we see it's usually when you go to customs between Sfaradim and Ashkenazim, they are different in customs, in many things. But they're not so different. I mean, they're going to be, you're allowed to eat rice, you're not allowed to eat rice. Rice is a suffix also by us. So it's a small little thing on Pesach, if what you're allowed to drink, kitniot, not kitniot. It's something, it's small little things that have a doubt even according to them. It's not like the Ashkenazim say, kitniot is chametz. We say we're not sure, we're not eating it. It's one.
But here they live in the environment that everybody has two wives. So what do you want from them?
Oh,
You want them to give up?
yeah, but in Judaism,
They don't have two wives.
excellent. But in Judaism, the Rebbes were always careful. They don't want separation within the Jewish nation. Yeah. Rabbeinu Gershon would know that since he's making a split in the Jewish nation, it's very dangerous. The whole thing with Judaism is that we're unity, we're one. There's no such thing. Such a thing, you know what it can cause? It can cause that Sfaradim and Ashkenazim are going to have two separate communities and they're not going to intermarry. You're going to say, you guys are crazy. Look at it. It almost will become a different religion. And rabbis were very afraid to make such things happen. He would not go with such strength. Yeah, exactly. What about if it's a second wife? Is it good? Yeah, it will still be good, but we don't want this. Yeah, we don't want it, or something like that. Very good. Yeah, you can have problems within the nation. So what's going on over here? We need to look at the root. Where did the root come from? What was happening? So it says like this. בנוגע לאופן הנהגת האדם בעניין הנישואים, כותב הרמב"ם, the Rambam writes when it comes to marriage, so it says, דרך בעלי דעה, on page number 9. And by the way, this is another difference between Ashkenaz and Sfaradim. You're going to see. The Rambam and the Sfaradim and the Ashkenazim do it exactly the opposite way. The Rambam says, Baal De'ah, it says, if you have a little bit of brain in your head, a little bit, you don't need a lot. Baal De'ah, somebody who's a little bit smart, you know what he does? יקבע לו אדם מלאכה המפרנס ותחילה. He has to find a job. He becomes 18, 19 years old, 20 years old, becomes an electrician, he becomes a mechanic, he finds a job, he becomes a carpenter. He finds a job, that's the most important thing. You want to be a man? Yeah, you have to find something to do, a job. אחר כך, after you have a job, you know what the second thing you do? You buy a house. Where are you going to live? You need a place to live. So after you find a job, you pay a mortgage, maybe you take a loan, you start buying a house. ואחר כך יישא אישה. And only then you do what? You marry a woman. So that's if you're smart. שנאמר, because what does it says? מי האיש אשר, we have, when it comes to war, it says, מי האיש אשר נתם כרם ולא חיללו? Who is the man that planted the vineyard and he did not collect the fruits? This is a business. Planting a vineyard. מי האיש אשר בנה בית חדש ולא חנכו? Who is the man that built a new house and did not live in it? That's the house, the second direction. And only then it says, מי האיש אשר הרס אישה ולא לקחה? Who is the man that took a woman and did not live with her yet? So that's the way you do. if you're a normal human being, little bit of brains, this is what you do, that the Rambam. אבל הטיפשים, and the Rambam continues, what do the טיפשים do? The טיפשים do exactly the opposite. מתחילים לישא אישה. First of all, they find the wife. ואחר כך תמצא ידו יקנה בה. Then if he can find the house after that, if he will ever have enough money after finding a wife, then he can get a house. ואחר כך בסוף ימיו יחזור בכושמנות. And then... What do you mean? The Rabbi says it specifically. Yeah? We'll talk. Yeah? And the Rabbi says, and then when the guy is 40s, 50s, then maybe he'll be able to have a... That's exactly craziness. What do you mean? And the Rambam says that it's not me telling it to you, it's the Torah telling it to you. God is saying it. Says, where does God say it? Because in the curses, he says, look in the curses. What does it say? V'chen hu omer b'klalot. In the curses, it says, it looks like they're blessing. So the Rambam says, do you know why these are curses? This is actually curses, it's not blessing. What does the curse says? Isha te'ares. Look what it says. Isha te'ares ve'ish acher ikachena, yeah? A woman you will marry and somebody else is going to take her. Look at the order, he says. Because it's a curse. That's why it's in this order. Bayit tivne kerem tita, because it's a curse, because the guy is an idiot, he did it the wrong way, and this is what's happening. You know? First of all, a woman, the curses, first of all starts with a woman, then with a house, and then with a business. Klomar yu ma'asecha afuchim. Which means you're going to do the way, and this is halacha from the Rambam. Sfaradim, hold with it, everything is good. Klomar, you started working at 14 then. What do you think? Today you had college. You didn't have college then. כלומר, הסדר דנישואין צריך להיות באופן שיהיה בידו לפרנס. It says you don't get married unless you can marry somebody. And by the way, it was very much this way in the Sephardic communities. If you look at the Artzot Arav, when a person got to the age of 16, 17, 18, yeah, the father who has a store, who has something, you know, is to tell to the son, you go to that town, open another store. And that son will go to the town, and he will open another store, he will be the house, and he get married. That's the way it was. That's the way people lived. That was the Sephardic way all the time. But what happened? And by the way, this was the way in the Arab countries, because the living situation in the Arab countries was much better throughout history, financially and killing-wise, than in the European countries. They were wealthy businessmen, they had a lot of money, the Jews were rich, the Jews were powerful. From time to time there was a problem, but they used to take care of it. In the European countries, there were pogroms all the time, there were crusades, they were killing them, the Jews were downtrodden, they didn't have any money. It was a whole different ballgame. So let's continue. הנה, בנוגע למעמד ומצבם של בני ישראל בזמן הגלות, צוק העיתים, when it comes to the Jewish people in exile, in Europe, ישנו חילוק בין ארצות האשכנזים, גלות אדום, there's a big difference between the European Jews, לארצות הספרדים, גלות ישמעאל, to the Sfaradim, which is the exile of Ishmael. שקושי הגלות בארצות האשכנזים הוא בתוקף גדול יותר מאשר בארצות הספרדים. The Ashkenaz communities had greater difficulties than the Sephardic communities. ועניין זה קשור גם עם כללות החילוק בין אדום נוצרים לישמעאלים מוסלמים. And it says you should know that the root came from the fact that the Muslims believe in one God and the Christians do not. That's where the root of the problems come from. Yeah, that's what the Rebbe says. Like, yeah, that's right. It's the kid. Yeah, של אדום. That's right. כמו שכתב הרמב"ם, and even the Rambam writes it. What the Rambam writes, you should know, ישמעאלים באמין בהשם אחד. It says the Muslims believe in one God. ואינם עובדי עבודה זרה. They do not worship idols. Like whom? Like the Catholics. ואילו אדומים עובדי עבודה זרה הם. The Catholics, they worship statues. They worship Mary. They worship, what's his name? ובהתאם לכך מתבלה גם החילוק ביניהם בנוגע לקושי הגלות, שגלות אדום קשה יותר מאשר גלות ישמעאל. Thus the exile in Europe is harder than the exile in Ishmael. That's the root. Okay? ויש לומר, and we have to say, שבזה תלוי כללות החילוק בין חכמי אשכנז לחכמי ספרד בקשר לעניין נישואים. And this is why also there's a difference between Ashkenaz and Sfarad when it comes to marriage. It's not that the Ashkenazim don't agree with the Rambam. The Ashkenazim of course agree with the Rambam. It's the Rambam brings the rule from the Torah itself, from the curses. Of course you should marry last. They are 100% sure that marrying first is foolishness. But you know what the problem is? In the Ashkenaz, it says it's an emergency. If these guys are not going to get married, we don't know if they're alive in the next 3 years. If there's not going, the Jewish nation is going to be finished. If we're going to wait until, there's going to be a pogrom, there's going to be this, who's going to get married? No one will get married this way. It says we don't have the luxury to go make businesses, buy houses. It says what? Every second day they take your business, they take your house, they take if I wait until I have a business, I would never have a business. I would never be able to get married. Because of that, the Ashkenazic Jew says, forget about these rules. We don't have these rules over here. That's right. Get married, otherwise the Jewish nation is finished. We can't do this. Every 20 years, somebody will come, take all the business, all the houses, and kick them out of the country. You will never be able to do anything. That's how they lived. So that's how it started. Okay. But let's continue. Page 11. ישנו פתגם בספרי. There's a message, there's a saying in the ספרי. בנוגע לרבנו גרשום מאור הגולה. When it comes to Rabbeinu Gershom, and look at his name. His name is Rabbeinu Gershom, the light of the exile. The light of the exile. Who else has such a status? No, we know somebody else. Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes. Yeah, Rabbi Akiva doesn't have a title. Yeah, Me'or HaGola, the light of the exile. It says, so right it says, שבכל מקום שנזכר שמו של רבנו גרשום, it says every day, every time the name of רבנו גרשום is mentioned, מוסיפים מיד את התואר מאור הגולה. Immediately you're going to see the title is the light of the exile. He is the one that gave lights to the exile. שלא מצינו דוגמתו אצל הגאונים שלפניו והגדולים שלאחריו. It says we don't find such titles before him, nor do we find such titles after him. שעניין זה קשור עם 2 מתוך ריבוי תקנותיו. And it says, you know why he is the light of the nation? Because of those rules that he made. Which rules? Not marrying a woman, a second wife. Let's see. שלא זו בלבד שבו בשולחן ערוך. That not only this תקנות was brought down in the book of laws, ומשתמשים בהם לעתים רבות, and we use them all the time, אלא הן מפורסמות אפילו אצל אלו שלא יודעים כל הפרטים של בשולחן ערוך. But everybody knows about this. Like Takana Rishona, it says, tell me a Sephardic person today in the world that even though according to them it's no problem. Tell me, if you ask a Sephardic child, you like to marry 2 wives? What's wrong with you? What are you talking about? Just, there's no such thing. Everybody, even though that his great-grandfather did, by him, what are you talking about? We don't marry 2 wives. Yeah? שאין אדם יכול and also the law that you're not allowed to divorce a woman when she doesn't want. From the Torah you don't need the prohibition. You can say, what do the Arabs do? He says, go away 3 times and that's it, she's divorced. Right? That used to be the way of the Jews. Yeah. Today all of a sudden you want to divorce somebody? It's a whole big issue. I don't want, I have to accept, I don't accept, give me money, don't give me money. It doesn't end. והתקנה השנייה שאין אדם יכול לעשות אישה שנייה על אשתו הראשונה. And the second one is that a woman is not allowed to marry a second wife on the first. And we're going to see that over here, it's not a fight down here on earth. It's a fight up there in heaven. He's not fighting here. He's fighting with God. Rabbeinu Gershon. Rabbeinu Gershon is not fighting here in this earth. He's fighting with God up there in heaven. Well, you're going to see, it's an amazing concept. And this is, by the way, what the Sfaradim took. Even though throughout the ages, they slowly went with it. Because they see that spiritually, it's the right thing to do. Yeah? Let's see how. ובכן, על ידי שתי תקנות אלו העיר רבנו גרשום את כל הגולה. It says, this is how he gave light to the exile. שגם כאשר בני ישראל נמצאים בגלות, he says, when the Jewish people found themselves in such a dark exile, as the European Jewry, גלות פנימית וגלות חיצונית. Themselves, they don't feel so much Jewish, and also no money, no nothing, persecuted, killed. ישנה תקנה. It says, we're going to make sure, God, you can never get rid of us. It says, what's the idea? It says, first idea is what? Yeah? What's the takana? We are the wife. God married us on Mount Sinai. We're telling God, God, אסור לקדוש ברוך הוא לגרש את כנסת ישראל, את כנסת ישראל חס ושלום בעל כוחה. You don't have the right to divorce us. It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what we do. Against our will. If we tell you, God, we love you, we want to stay together with this, it doesn't matter what we do. We can do whatever we want. If we are going to force you to be with us no matter what. Don't like us. We don't tell you to like us, but you can't divorce us. That's the first thing. We don't accept the divorce, that's the first thing. וכיוון שברור הדבר שיהודי אינו יכול ואינו רוצה נפרד מהלקות, and since no Jew down right to it doesn't matter how he behaves, when you bring him down to the point, he says, no, I love God. Even though I do everything wrong, but down, when we see in the history of the Jews, all the time when it was down to the wire, the Jews always went with God. הרי אין לקדוש ברוך הוא, first of all, it says we're going to take his decision away. There is no such thing that our behavior can be as bad as it can be. We don't care what we do. God, you will never have a reason good enough. As long as we want to be married to you, you won't be able to divorce us. That's the first rule. And the second rule, we're afraid you're going to say something else. Since you don't behave the right way, Jews, no, you can't, because you don't have permission. You can't, because you don't have a permission. You need no permission. Yeah? But
take another wife.
You cannot take another wife either. You can't take another wife. It says that's the idea. It was a symbolic idea for the Jews. The Jews in Europe, it's called the New Covenant. God took another, it says, and they felt it. And these two things, the Jews felt downtrodden. They felt second-class citizens. They weren't proud. They didn't have the pride to be a Jew. Because of Rabbeinu Gershon, all of a sudden the Jewish people, even though they were killed, they were doing that, they felt God is my God. It's not anybody else's God. Until then, the priest told them, you guys, God doesn't love you anymore. You know who he loves? He loves us. And the Jews felt it. Maybe not the sages, maybe not the rabbis, but the communities. He brought back the fact that Jews felt, I am a Jew. You cannot tell me nothing. I'm on top of the world. I'm connected to God. Nobody is more than me. That's what he's called. He shined the exiled. This is what's the idea of Rabbi Meir. אפילו לומר שיקח אישה שנייה לאשתו ראשונה, אומר רבנו גרשום, זאת לא. And this is why the decree, you're not even allowed to take another, even if you have a good reason. The best reason in the world, you're not going to take another wife. There's no other wife. You see how the spiritual world came into halacha?
Why did he have to do this, Rabbeinu? God said already.
But the Jews didn't see it. The Jews didn't experience it. The Jews felt like I am a second-class citizen. Like God, if God loves us, how come we are second-class? If God loves us, how come they're killing us every day? That's not maybe the rabbis knew it. You're right. The rabbis never had. But the rabbis only knew it. The nation felt exactly the opposite. וכללות העניין בזה, and the matter in this, שהסיבה לכך שתקנה מסוימת מתקבלת למעלה, היא בגלל שכן הוא למעלה. It says, you should know, guys, I'm not telling you something new. I'm just revealing to you what's God's attitude. You guys are thinking wrong right now. You're thinking that God can take another wife. All I'm doing, he says, I'm revealing God's relationship with you. That's all I'm doing. I'm telling you what the relationship really is. God is not going to take a second wife. God is not even going to divorce you. He can't. If you love him, he's with him. Because the Jews didn't feel it. כמאמר רבתנו ז"ל, מה שהוא עושה, הוא אומר לישראל לעשות. He says, I am telling you, this is the law. God says, I'm telling you, this is the law. The law came with Rabbeinu Gershon. God says, until now, it was necessary to tell it to you so strict. Now I'm telling it to you so strict, because you need it.
Because of the God.
Because of the exile, it's so bad. No. Before that, it was true also. It was always true. But you didn't need. But they felt it. Before that, they knew that God would never leave them. Now they had doubts. The Jews themselves had doubts. He says, maybe God did leave us. Maybe he loves the Christians now because they're on top. That was the idea. So he tells them, no, God will never exchange you. And this is the law. That's what he tells them. This is the law. And therefore we'll have to start behaving this way. To show. והיינו שלכל ראש מקיים הקדוש ברוך הוא ואני המתחיל. God says, I'm going to start. ולכן כשהגיע הזמן שראו שזקוקים לתקנות אלו למעלה, אזי נתקרבו תקנות אלו למעלה. Until now it wasn't necessary to say it upstairs, because the people felt the closest to God. Now they don't feel, so we'll bring this reality down to them. That's all Rabbeinu Gershon did. And that's why it wasn't where in the Sephardi community, because it was necessary there. Over there the Jews didn't have these problems. They didn't feel like God left them. Which Jews felt that God left them? The Ashkenazi Jew. And again, not the rabbis, not the learned ones. ומזה מובן, from here we understand, גם בנוגע לאופן הפעולה בזה מלמטה למעלה. The same way it is from down here. כדי לפעול שלא יסתפקו למעלה בשלילת עניין גירושין חס ושלום, ואפילו לא לקיחת אישה שנייה לראשונה, אלא שיהיו חיי נישואים של איש ואישה בכל הפרטים באופן ששרק כסותה ועונתה לא ייגרע. So today we live in a situation. What's the situation? We need to make sure that the relationship between us and God is a good one. In other words, how are we practically today, in order to make sure that Mashiach comes, in order to make sure that there's going to be peace in the world, in order to make sure that there's not going to be diseases, not going to be war, not going to be anything wrong, the way our relationships down here between Jews, that's going to exactly reflect the way God is going to be. And which Jew is the most important?
Which Jew?
Yeah.
God.
No, to you. To you, which Jew is the most important? Which Jew is to you the most important? To you personally. His wife. That's the relationship. The wife is the most important relationship. That's the relationship between the husband and the wife. That is it. It says you want peace in the world. It says you want peace in the world. You want Mashiach to come. You know what you need to make sure? That relationship between the husband and the wife is a good relationship. The better it is, it says to be, and you know what we tend to do? It says it's too hard to have a good relationship with the wife. You know what? I'll have a good relationship with my buddies, with my friends, with this. They understand me. She doesn't understand me. She doesn't. No. God says that's the relationship you need to work on. The relationship specifically of husband and wife.
Like they said, start בבית.
That's right, exactly. כי הפירוש הפנימי שהוא עניין אורות מקיפים ואורות פנימיים והמשכה פנימית, we're not going to go through this whole Kabbalah. יש צורך, we need, שבדוגמה זאת תהיה תוספת התעוררות בנוגע לחיי איש ואישה ישראלים למטה. So we have to make sure that our behavior down here in this world, the peace in the house between husband and wife, have to be a good connection. We have to work on it. It's easy to be to have a good connection with guys, with friends. That means you understand each other. They don't give you whatever. Yeah, that's right. It's hard to have a relationship with somebody who thinks different than you, who experiences life differently, who sees the whole. That's right. What's the idea? שיש שלום ושלווה ביניהם. There needs to be peace and tranquility between a husband and a wife. ואין שלום אלא מיוסד על תורתנו. Shalom means that a person needs to take Torah and bring it home. That's what shalom means. שהודתה מביא הרמב"ם, מאמר הספרי, the Rambam says, שכל התורה ניתנה לעשות שלום בעולם. It says, the entire Torah. You know what the entire Torah was written? So that you can have peace with your wife.
Oh.
That's it. That's the most important thing. There's nothing more important. All the commandments have one goal. The goal is to have a good relationship with your wife. That's the goal of all the commandments. There's no other. Nothing is important. You know what's important? The Torah is a tool. It's a tool for the husband and wife to live peacefully together. Because that symbolizes the relationship with us and God. שנאמר, because it says, דרכיה דרכי נועם, it says, her way is the ways of נועם, וכל נתיבותיה שלום, and all her ways are only peace. וכאשר בונים את הבית על יסודי התורה, when one builds the house on the foundations of Torah and a foundation of mitzvahs, what does it mean? That there is peace between husband and wife in the house, כפשוטם, כדברי הגמרא במסכת סוטה, just as the Gemara says in מסכת סוחה, זכו שכינה ביניהם. It says, if they merit, shechina is between them. Now, listen to this word. A person can say, what do you mean? I can't connect to God? If I don't have peace in the house? So he says, no, you can't.
זכו שכינה ביניהם, between them, not that you can connect.
Shechina, it means God is with them.
Them.
God, in other words, if you want Shechina,
Zachu is the crew.
yeah,
If you want Shekhinah,
a person might think,
you have to have a click.
if a person might think, I'll explain, if a person might think, you know how can I connect to God? Easy. I learn Torah and do mitzvahs. I connect to God. They tell him, no, you won't. If you don't have a wife and you don't have a good relationship with your wife, you are not connected to God. Shechina is not with you. That's what Masechet Sota is telling you. The entire Torah, everything in the Torah has to do, to be a religious Jew means to have a good relationship with your wife. That's it. That's what it says. שמאחדת ומייחדת את האיש והאישה כפשוטם. It says a religious person, you want to call yourself a religious? Religious means you have a good relationship with your wife. Don't tell me I'm praying 15 times a day. That has nothing to do with it. A person who prays 100 times a day and is fighting with his wife, the Shechina is not with him. God is not with him. You know when God is with him? When you have a good connection to his wife. And he doesn't daven 15 times a day because she doesn't like it. I don't care why. Yeah? אזי נעשה כן גם בנוגע לקודש בריחו ושכינתה. It says, once the husband and wife have a good relationship, then God is going to bring Mashiach. It says, God is not going to bring Mashiach with all your Torah, with all your mitzvahs, with all everything. Everything is a reflection of the connection at home. שנעשה עניין הנישואים של הקדוש ברוך הוא בישראל בגלוי, because it's a reflection. When God sees that you're at peace over here, He's going to bring His peace from up there. והיינו, לא כמו בזמן הגלות. It says, it's not going to be like in our time now. שקודש בריחו סליק לעילה ולעילה, that God, we cannot see Him down here in this world. We see only the stupidities of the world that they are ruling. כאישה שהלך בעלה מנת הים. You know what it looks like? He's still married. You know, but you know what? He's married, and you live in Israel, and she lives in Israel, we live in Israel, and he lives in New York. Says, that's not called marriage. Says, we're not divorced. Not divorced, but that's not marriage. That's not what we mean. Yeah? So you can't divorce me. No. We have to work on the fact that the marriage is together. That's the whole idea. אלא בגילוי למטה, במקום שבו נמצאים בני ישראל. Says, once we reveal it down here, then God is going to bring it up there from above. Chaim l'chaim.